Good afternoon, guys. Just working, bringing you a quick update on Bitcoin. Hope you guys are having a wonderful afternoon. Good start to your week. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. We're looking at Bitcoin to the US dollar. This is the 4-hour chart on Coinbase. And last time we spoke, guys, Bitcoin was operating right in this range. We had, of course, talked about the massive breakup, the non-massive breakup, the potential breakout that we were looking for ended up being a bear trap, rejecting right there at that 11,050. Well, technically not a bear trap, I guess you would you'd call it a fake out move, I guess would be fair to say. Of course, coming right back down into the area of consolidation, finding support there. And just recently, guys, we've now seen price break down below this I guess you could say this prior areas of consolidation, the real support. In other words, the 4-hour open and close was sitting right around $10,290, and that was really kind of the base, the anchor of this. Even though we've had a wick now that went down to about $10,100, so we have taken out that base. Now we do still have 37 minutes left on this 4-hour candle, so technically this could turn into a wick. But I would say if we do take out the bottom of this candle, which is at about 10,100. Obviously, we're going to be looking at 10,000 here. That's not much of a trade at all. That is not a trade at all, actually. I'm just kind of giving you points of reference here. It's this 10,000, really $9,950 zone that I'm going to be watching. I do think we come down here. I do think it bounces possibly once, maybe even twice. But on the higher time frames, guys, I think we very likely are going to break down if we do end up testing this a second time. I think it does break down. And of course, as I pointed out yesterday, guys, I believe I pointed out yesterday, or I pointed out in the past, anyway, we do have this larger ascending support line that has been intact since about May of 2019 here. So I would be looking for a bounce. Yes, if we break below 9,950, yes, I'm going to be looking at 9,400 as a potential bounce. Of course, we saw that last time, but I'm also going to be looking at this ascending support line here, guys. This would be this maybe we wick down to 9,400, guys, but I'm going to be looking for. I would like to see if this overall consolidation pattern is going to happen, guys. I'd like to see a higher high than this prior low here, or excuse me, a higher low than this prior low here. So if we can keep this ascending support line intact, overall on a macro level, that would be bullish. Now, if this does break down, guys, then I'm going to be looking for drops. If we get I'm not even going to say a 4-hour. If we get a daily close below this ascending support line here, then I'm going to be looking for lower targets, guys, down to about at least 8,900 as my first target, if not 8,500 down here. And of course, we've talked about this, guys, between 8,900 and 8,500. This is the area that I'm very interested in picking up and adding to my long position regarding Bitcoin. I will also, of course, will trade that. I've got two portfolios, guys. I know it gets confusing sometimes because I get your emails. You know, I've got two portfolios. I'm both an investor and a trader. My long-term hold portfolio, my investment portfolio, I add to that every now and then when I see a very relevant zone like I'm looking at here between 89 and 8,500. That's my long-term hold portfolio. My trading portfolio, that's changing all the time. You know, that's split between swing, day, and scalp trades, and you know that's constantly changing. That's tough to keep an eye on, or tough to keep you updated on. But yeah, I will actually look for both probably a scalp and a long-term hold addition between this 89 and 8,500, slowly laddering in all the way down to 8,500 for that long-term hold position. In the meantime, guys, I'm going to be, as I said, if this does end up breaking below about 10,100, I will be looking for, especially if we close below there. If we wick below here real quick, okay, I won't love it, but okay. But if we close below there, guys, yes, I will be looking for at least a move down to 9,950. I do think that breaks, and then I'm going to be looking for a move down to about this ascending support line, which I do think is going to be around, depending on where it is when we break, maybe around anywhere between 96 and 9,700-ish, somewhere in that neighborhood. And if I grab, I'm just curious, I do think, see if this, if we get some confluence within that zone here. Yeah, actually, I mean, if it was to drop, that would be right around the 382. And in fact, we're dancing right. If I grab my fib extension from the prior swing high to this this pivot high here at 11,050, the lower low there, or excuse me, the lower high, I should say. We can see that we've danced, we've bounced twice now off of this 236 zone. Currently, just wicking off of it just now. If this does break, guys, yeah, of course, this would suggest a drop to that $9,950 zone. But of course, the next major fib level is going to be sitting there at the 382, and that right now does line up fairly well with that ascending support line, guys. So I would have to say that is a very, very likely target. Let me just pull my regular fib from top to bottom here as well. and see if that lines up with a whole lot of anything here. And let me just make sure that I'm right on it. There we go. Yeah, I mean, it would actually have to drop straight down for that to, so not a whole lot of confluence there, but certainly with the extension. So that's what I'm going to be looking for a bounce. As I said, if that does break, and that's a big if that does break, then we're looking at 8,900, if not 8,500. Of course, if 8,500 does break down, then we're looking into the upper to mid 7,000s. We'll have to wait and see how that ends up playing out. To the upside here, guys, of course, if we get a, watching this, seeing that we had this rejection yesterday, it has now been a very hard rejection off of that 10,650 on a very, very micro level. I want to be very careful with my words here when I say hard rejection. Of course, looking at the bigger picture, it was barely noticeable. But zooming in there on the 4 hour, zooming in on the hourly, you would consider that a decent rejection off that $10,650 zone, meaning if we can get a 4 hour open and close above 10,650, I do think that would bode well and potentially set up a nice trade up to about 11,050 once again, if we do get that setup. Now, of course, just like before, it is possible we end up shooting up here, but the setup is a little bit different this time. It does look like we may kind of just slowly break above 10,650. If we then got that 4 hour open and close above, then I do think that would very likely be a good setup to at least testing this 11,050. And as always, if 11,050 does break up, guys, then we're of course targeting 11,500, and of course above that I'd be targeting this 12,000. I would just play the resistance all the way up. It's not until we break above 12,400 that I start to get bullish. In other words, start to think we're going to break out of this much larger consolidation pattern that Bitcoin is in right here. We're going to break out of this pattern once we get above 12,400. Then I'm going to start to look for moves to break at least 13,000, if not our $13,850 high. Checking moving averages, exponential moving averages. This is what I discussed yesterday, guys. I told you that we had the 50, 21, and 55 exponential all converging on one another. We also had the 50 simple converging on them as well. Of course, this was a formula with the Bollinger Band starting to bottleneck. This was a formula for a larger move to come. Now, we did just have a breakdown, and it's funny. I mean, this whole signature just kind of reeks of manipulation here, guys, because everybody's looking at the same thing. Everybody's seeing these moving averages converge like this, and it's just. When everybody is seeing that typical thing, you know, when you see a breakout like this, if you're not disciplined, you'd want to go long, you'd want to play that trade out, and of course you would have gotten wrecked. To the downside, you see that quick move from 10,560 down to 10,130, and you think this is it, this is the move, and you tend to want to front run that here. And of course, the market makers know that this is a game they're playing, trying to bait people in before the larger move is to come. As of right now, we are still in a consolidation pattern here, guys. We are still having, we do still see the 4 hour Bollinger Bands here bottlenecking. We do still have the 50-21, or excuse me, 55-21 and 8-day EMA all converging on the 50 here, guys. So we are not seeing the larger move yet, but it does look poised to come at literally sometime in the next few days. Yesterday I said 24 to 48 hours. I would say that looks about right. Zooming out on the daily, we are still stuck between the 21 exponential and the 50 simple. So we are still basically trading a range, as we discussed yesterday. The one thing that is similar that I will note about the daily is now we are again starting to see the 821 and 55. We're now starting to see them converge more and more on the daily here, as well as, of course, the 50 simple bringing up on the bottom here. So again, all suggesting a large, more powerful move to come here. In the next, certainly this week, I would say in the next, very likely in the next 24, I hate to keep saying 24 to 48 hours, guys, and then we keep getting this fake out move, which just kind of prolongs it just a little bit more and more. But yeah, I'll just say this week. But of course, I'm eyeballing it to happen within the next 24, really probably the next 24 hours, if not 48 hours. Zooming out on the weekly, we can see that yesterday we did have our weekly close between the two areas we were discussing, between about that $10,180 and the top of this zone at about 10,730. So we did have basically a neutral. I mean, yes, it was a green candle, which some people are going to say that's bullshit. It's really a neutral candle. This is really just a sign of continuing consolidation with no real winner between the bull or bear side is not declared a winner as of yet. We do still have a massive epic battle going on, as I like to say, as you're probably sick of hearing, and we will eventually have a resolution on this. It wasn't going to happen last week here. We can see the bulls are still defending the 8-week EMA here on the daily. Of course, if we do end up decisively breaking below that on the weekly, really does get my attention here, guys. We can wick below it like we've seen, but if we get a decisive break below that on the weekly, of course, that would suggest much, much lower prices to come, would suggest at least the mid to lower 8,000 or 8K range, between 8,000 and 8,500. But again, we're not there yet, so let's wait and see how this ends up playing out. Now coming out to the 50 and 200 exponential, this is the one this is the death cross. This would be that confirmed death cross. We know that we had a death cross on the 4-hour chart. Of course, this is the 4-hour, guys. We know we had a death cross on the simple, the 50 crossing below the 200 simple. Now we're seeing it where the 50 is threatening to cross below the 200 exponential. This is going to be, if this does happen, guys, yes, I mean, we can see that it's been threatening this for about, let's see, since the 18th. So what is that? Man, almost 5 days now. It's been threatening a cross down to the downside here. And of course, this does look more and more probable with this candle. If this candle closes down here in about 24 minutes or so, yes, we very likely will have a death cross. And of course, if that does happen, guys, technically, my bias would have to shift down. Technically, my bias would shift. Of course, at least 10,000 is what we're going to be looking at, 9,950. But that 9,000 really trying to hold up the integrity of this ascending support line here. That's really going to be my, I think this would be the first likely target if we do get that death cross. Again, it may not happen right away. I just kind of think, over the next 24 hours or so, that would be the first likely target I'd be looking at. Of course, that does break down, guys. I very likely think 9,400 breaks down, and of course, then we're right down into this zone between 89 and 8,500, the buy zone for me. Now, again, this is just me. I'm not a financial advisor. Please do not take this as financial advice, because it's not. 8,500 could break down for all the reasons that we've discussed in the past. Everybody's looking at 8,500 to 8,900. So if everybody's looking at it, oftentimes it either gets front run or it gets overshot. Now we've discussed this. Then you get into the the reverse psychology, where if everybody's looking at this and then therefore nobody thinks it's going to bounce, maybe it will bounce. And you can go back and forth, as we discussed on earlier videos, back and forth, back and forth. But there's no question, absolutely no question, that 8,500 is an extremely relevant zone, as I've talked about ad nauseum on past videos. So yes, I will be looking to enter, to add to my long position between 89 and 8,500 without question. I do think that we're going to, at the very bare minimum, get some type of a bounce. I do think that you're going to be able to, if you're looking to add to your long, I do think that this could potentially give you the opportunity to do that, as well as scalping, because I will be scalping this as well, targeting about 9,400 if we do it, because I do think even if the 8,500 does break down, I do think we bounce off there first. All right, to the upside. If this thing is all just a bear trap here, this breaking down, again, we have not taken out this prior low in this candle yet. So again, I don't want to, get too bearish yet. But assuming if we do end up reversing course here in the next 22 minutes before this 4-hour candle does close, and we avert that death cross, guys, either we're going to get more consolidation, but if this potentially we could see. In fact, let me throw on the volume signature just very quickly. We did break down on a little bit of volume on there. Not actually, we broke down on a little more volume than I thought. Now, it's not the kind of volume that I would say where it's extremely relevant. But that move, of course, is certainly caught my eye at the very least. So let's wait and see how this breaks out. Let me just throw on the hourly. I don't usually like to use the hourly here in this case, but we are getting a little bit of hidden bullish divergence here on the hourly, which doesn't mean a whole lot of anything. Could just mean a quick test back up to about 10,300-ish, somewhere thereabouts. Let me quickly check the 2-hour. We are getting the same thing. A little bit of bullish divergence on the 2-hour as well, which again could just suggest a quick test up to about that 8,300-ish. Not seeing it on the 4-hour or anything higher, so I don't put a whole lot of weight on that. So yeah, we're just gonna have to wait and see how this plays out, guys. But there's no question everybody's watching that 4-hour potential death cross, which means that could we get a fake out? Could we actually see a quick cross and then a bounce to the upside because everybody's looking at it? I mean, it's been typically, I would say no, because typically it happens very quickly. But the fact that it's just been sitting here being teased for literally 5 days now, just basically gathering an audience to to where people that weren't looking at it back here are certainly looking at it now. You know, it's almost the perfect opportunity for a fake out. So it's the psychology goes deep, man. It really does. And if you don't think trading is psychological, you probably aren't doing very well. Trading is every bit, if not more, psychological as it is technical. And if you haven't read Trading in the Zone, I would highly recommend picking up that book. Checking daily volume. Daily volume, we're down to about 15.7 billion. That is quite the drop off. Let's go ahead and look at historically. Yeah, and we have been dropping off since the 18th. So basically, since that death cross, we've seen volume dropping off. Everybody waiting to get resolution on this. Went from 25 to 20, slightly down to about 20.7 to 20.2. Then yesterday dropping down to 17, and today we're sitting at 15. I mean, that is literally half of where we were at our peak just back on July the 10th, which was 12 days ago, where we were at 33 billion, actually less than half the daily volume. So this is very interesting, guys. A lot of people sidelined, a lot of people sitting here waiting for resolution on this, guys. And I don't want to pick a side. We do, as I pointed out yesterday, we do have, if I pull out here and look at our indicators here, we do have, let me just grab it. There we go. Actually, on the daily chart, we do have this hidden bullish divergence here, both on the MACD as well as on the RSI. You could say the MACD is already kind of played out and not really as relevant, but the RSI, 4-hour RSI, or excuse me, the 1-day daily RSI certainly is relevant, guys. Now, of course, you could also say it played out with this bounce here, but did it? I mean, the last time we had bullish or hidden bullish divergence like this was back here to this degree, and of course, we had a very significant bounce from about $7,500 to that $13,850 zone. Now, it doesn't mean that has to happen at all. It doesn't mean any of this has to happen. Just means, and of course, we have a very strong case for a breakdown to that 8,500, especially if we get what looks like a very real possibility of a death cross coming here in the next 20 minutes or so on the 4-hour exponential. So let's see how this plays out, guys. This certainly is an epic battle. We are just trading a range. Bottom line is, until we get above 11,050 or back below 9,400, we are just trading a range. And I would actually probably raise that to a decisive break below this ascending support line here. If we got a decisive break on the 4-hour below the ascending support line here, I would give the nod in favor of the bears, even if we hadn't broken down below 9,400. But 9,400 would be, the point where I'd say we're absolutely heading down. So that's kind of my my overall sentiment, guys. Don't mean to drag it out. I know a lot of people hate that, but I just feel, and for those you veteran traders that wanted the bottom line, that's the bottom line. For those of you that want to continue to hear a little bit more detail, I feel an obligation to not just say, I'm bullish, I'm bearish, here are the targets, see ya. Because I know so many new people are watching this, guys, and I know that it's, I just feel like it would be irresponsible for me to just say I'm bullish or bearish without any caveats and going into detail on those caveats, because number one, you're not going to learn, and of course, I do this channel primarily so people cannot just, don't just, is working bullish, is working bearish, but they can actually learn to decide whether or not they themselves, based on their own technical analysis, are bullish or bearish and how to trade. Kind of, how do you feed a person for life? You don't just give them a fish, you teach them how to fish. So anyway, not to get philosophical and preachy on you, which that absolutely was preachy, so I'm just going to go ahead and shut up right away. All right, let me quickly get to your comments here, guys. Let's see. Sam Surrey says, again, nice explanation, and the results are accurate after the fact. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Sam. Guys Ghost says, thank you for consistently posting videos for free. Giving the possible bullish and bearish scenarios empowers me to learn and not blindly follow alerts. And that's why I do this, man. Thank you, Guys Ghost, for saying that. Thank you for saying that. I recently bought Trading in the Zone. Congrats, dude. You will not be disappointed. Excellent book. What book would you suggest to learn technical analysis? Again, thank you. There are many books for technical analysis, guys. The one that pops to mind, especially if you're just getting into this, especially if you kind of know the basics, you know how to read candlesticks, you know the basics. I would say probably the next leap would be a book called Technical Analysis of the Financial Market. It's a comprehensive guide to trading methods and applications by John J. Murphy. I put that in the comment section there below Guys Ghost comment if anybody is interested. That is an excellent zone. If you read that in combination with Trading in the Zone, you'll probably get You'll probably be more informed on the psychological and technical side of trading than 99% of the traders out there. Yes, you're not going to be a professional trader on the New York Stock Exchange, but you will be more informed than 99.99999% of the retail traders out in the market. Let's see. Josh Decker says, keep up the good work. I guess it can be quite frustrating hearing your opinion, reasoning coming through other channels. Might help if you don't watch their channels instead. I'm not sure because I'm sure most of your subs don't. Hey, thanks, Josh. I appreciate that. And yeah, it is frustrating. I don't listen to other people's channels. That's not true. Actually, every now and then I will try to listen to other people that I do respect. As well as the guy that taught me. He doesn't have a YouTube channel, but talking with him. So I do try to get other people's opinion. I don't mean to sound arrogant in that regard. If you're not getting other people's opinion, then you're not doing your due diligence, and I basically will not value your opinion if you don't value other people's opinion on which you respect. That being said, I don't typically watch I certainly don't watch people that are just repeating what I'm saying unless somebody blatantly one of my followers typically emails me a link or a description of somebody that is doing something, and then I'll go see, just because I'm kind of tired of it, and I'm looking to see if I could take some potential legal action against some of them. Now, it's very, very difficult. It has to be very blatant, but some of it is blatant. So anyway, I'll leave it there. Joshua says, good stuff, man. I've been bearish for BTC to test that 8,500 level. I didn't take into account how BTC doesn't always cooperate with predictable paths of correcting to levels support and resistance. Seems BTC has been making interesting moves almost daily up to this weekend. Very interesting. It is very interesting times. You're right, man. And yeah, it usually does respect those support and resistance levels, even if it doesn't hold. Usually you'll get a reaction on it, and that's basically my bread and butter for trading. Let's see. Errol says, hey, working. Hope you're feeling better. I have found a really handy indicator on TradingView that highlights CME gaps on your BTC USD chart. It's called CME Gap Finder, and it's by 092. Your viewers might want to give it a go. 4-hour time frame, and it's free. Okay, yeah, if you guys want to check it out, check it out. CME gaps are pretty easy to spot, but yeah, man, if you guys want to check that out, go ahead. Let's see. Slip Not the People says, thank you very much. You're the best by far. Hey, thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. Sylvia says, waiting for 8.5 to load. Great call. I was awake and observed it going over 11K and then reversing like a whale coming out of the water, surface splash and going back into the water. It was like that, man. Yeah, it was. Joe Williams says, spot on again. Thanks for the info and the great call in the last minute. Thank you, my friend. AALS says, thank you. Thank you, AALS. 55 miles per hour says, ETH to USD, please. Yeah, just because you said please, sure. And here, ETH USD, looking at the overall daily chart here, we can see that it is still respecting within these two trend lines. I haven't changed my chart since last time we spoke about it here. Of course, we do have the ascending support line here that was broken. Of course, when we talked about that being broken, and it hit every one of our targets on the way down. And then, of course, we have the overall larger ascending support line down here that price did hit perfectly off of. And of course, we know that 220 to 230 has been a major zone of consolidation, or a major area of interest, I should say, acting as resistance or support. Obviously, in the past, acting as resistance and then turning into support. Then price came down, turned into support briefly, came back up, and now, unfortunately, since we are breaking down, assuming that this daily candle does close below this 220, and to be honest, I'd really like to see an open and close since we are looking at the daily here, but it would be a bearish sign if we see the daily closing below 220 here. We could see a wick, and that'd be fine. But if we see it closing below 220, that's going to be a red flag. If we see an open and close below 220, of course, I am going to be looking for another drop, likely to this ascending support line here. Could that, in fact, I'm very curious. I want to see something very quickly. If I just grab this to this and make sure I'm going all the way to the top here. All right. Yeah, actually, this ascending support line does line up nicely with the 786, so I wouldn't be surprised. Wouldn't be surprised if we do end up closing below 220. I wouldn't be surprised to see it close back down here and testing the 786. That'd be around 195-ish, somewhere thereabouts, guys. That would not surprise me in the least. 185 is where I'm looking to pick up a little bit more ETH. It was front run last time here. I actually missed it by literally like by $1 or something like that, guys, which was sloppy trading on my part. I should have had it. I should have known that it would have been front run, and I should have acknowledged this ascending support line better. That being said, you live and you learn, right? So yeah, if we come back down here a second time though, and especially that would mean that we'd be breaking this ascending support line, the chart would suggest a drop down to about 170, 175, actually breaking 185, and that would be nice combination with, or excuse me, a nice visual support back here prior consolidation on the daily. Let me just see if what we have on the 4-hour, just to see if that is confirmed. 4-hour would look for a drop to about 175-ish if that ascending support line is taken out. So I would adjust that buy zone. I do think 185 is relevant. It is certainly a visual support. I'm just kind of looking at it in combination with our fibs and the ascending support line. It would suggest a drop down to more the $175 to $170 zone, and that's where I'd have to reevaluate. If 170 does break down, I do think it's going to be a very quick drop down to 165. Obviously, 165 is really not much of a gap, is it at all? But 150 becomes a very likely target, anywhere between 165 and 150. So to sum it all up, I guess I would have to say anything below 170 down to and including 150 is not a bad idea to accumulate Ethereum if you are looking to accumulate long for the long and store for the long haul. And basically, I would just ladder buys in between that zone. In all fairness, I have not done that, but having looked at this chart, I'm probably going to give it another look. But that's just my quick once over here. Let me quickly look at the weekly for you. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, yeah, last week, actually, last week's candle did not close that bad. Last week, I mean, the weekly candle last week did actually suggest a reversal here. And to be fair, you know, we're very early in the week here, so anything could happen. Could we drop back down here and get a massive reversal here? Yeah, absolutely. Could we end up reversing course right here? Yeah, I would say it really depends on this closing of the weekly. And of course, unfortunately, it really depends on Bitcoin. If Bitcoin does end up taking off, I do think Ethereum very likely does take off again, and I will be, you see, you've heard my downside targets. If we get a 4-hour, or excuse me, if we get a daily open and close, even a close, I'd probably front run, but if we get an open and close above 230, then I'm going to be looking for targets once again back up to this 270 range. The chart would suggest a rise to a minimum 250, but I'd be looking more at I'd be eyeballing 270 as a second target. And in fact, I just want to go out here to the daily, and I just want to see something very, very quickly. Let's go swing low, swing high, or swing high, swing low here. And yeah, we're rejecting right there off the 236, which is actually kind of a bearish sign if we can't get above that zone. I mean, a very bearish sign actually if we can't get above that zone. But that being said, if we do get that decisive break, and again, looking at this chart, I would be fairly comfortable saying if we got a daily, just a daily close above the 236 here, and maybe even a yeah, now I'm just going to say a daily close above the 236. It does look like the next target, as I said, would be about 250. That would line up very nicely with the next fib level at 382. And of course, I said the next target would be 270, which lines up very nicely with the 50 fib level here. So yeah, I would say those are very, very good targets if it does break to the upside. All right, quickly, let's see. JH says, thank you, JH. Appreciate you always stopping by, man. Geo957 says, LOL, it drops on Monday. Well, man, it's Monday and it did drop, so I guess I would say nice call. Crypto, big, of course, we haven't really dropped yet. We're talking micro level. Let's see if it happens on the macro. Let's see. Bitcoin or crypto Bullcoin says, yes, you are right. Everyone is bullish on YouTube for earning more respect and money for fake TA. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure if you're talking about other people doing fake TA or yeah. Unfortunately, I'm not sure what you're saying there. Ballsy, God. Ballsy says, thank you. Working my my other main holding is Litecoin. Can you do a Litecoin USD pairing, please? Because you said please. Absolutely, my friend. Let's see. Where am I? Let me just bring up Litecoin quickly. And there we go. Just like that, we're at Litecoin, and looks like Litecoin did reject it at that trend line, and that's not a good sign as of now. Now let's see, it is rejecting pretty hard here. It hasn't closed, to be very fair. So of course we do have some time left in this daily candle. Could this be a fake out? Yeah, it could be. We are finding support right where we would expect it at this $91 zone. I haven't changed this chart since last we analyzed Litecoin to the US dollar. Of course, this what was an ascending support line here is still very relevant. Some people make the mistake oftentimes of, especially on ascending or descending support lines, they make the mistake of as soon as it breaks, they think it's no longer relevant. This chart proves that's not the case. Of course, price broke down here, hit this $100 resistance, or excuse me, support. Support broke down. Of course, what would you expect? You would expect what was support to act as resistance. Price broke down, came back up. What was support did act as resistance, not just at this $100 zone, really about 101, but not just at this $100, what now is confirmed resistance, but also the ascending support line, what was support, also acting as resistance here as well. Is a bearish sign, but let's see if this is a fake out. As I said, we are finding support right at this $91 zone. If Bitcoin breaks down, Litecoin will likely break down with it, and sometimes actually Litecoin leads the way. So in fact, it has often been leading the way. So I may even say if Litecoin breaks down, watch for Bitcoin to follow. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out. But for right now, let's see. Are we getting any signals? Yeah, I mean, look at that. Look at that. This is on the daily. Look at that signal and MACD line. Very neutral. Histogram very neutral. We can see that the daily RSI is actually on the weaker side, guys, struggling to get back up above. Really, we need to see it get back up above 45, 46 for finding some resistance right there as of right now. But again, not giving us too much information. Looking at the 4-hour RSI. Actually, 4-hour histogram is a little bit interesting. 4-hour histogram is suggesting 4-hour histogram is actually suggesting a little bit of hidden bullish divergence here between point and point. If this thing breaks down further, that would suggest a little bit of hidden bullish divergence there, guys. But again, a very, very small amount, and could be actually why we're seeing support right there. So I don't put a whole lot of weight in that, to be completely fair here. Let's zoom out here to the weekly, see if we're seeing anything relevant at all. Actually, very similar to Bitcoin, actually exactly like Bitcoin. We are seeing a little bit of hidden bullish divergence on the weekly RSI, similar to the 4-hour RSI, or excuse me, the daily RSI in Bitcoin. We're seeing it on the weekly RSI with Litecoin, but to be fair, that may have already played out, to be honest with you, with that little bounce there. Histogram also seeing a little bit of the same, but again, may have played out with this bounce here that we saw last week, that especially given that last week just closed. So very, very difficult one to call. So, but I will say that we are trading a clear range between 100 and 90. I will say if we do get a 4-hour open and close, I'd really like to see a daily, to be honest with you. I'd like to see at least a daily close below 91. And when I say like to, what I mean is if we see a daily close below 91, I will be looking for a drop down to at least 84, 85. Somewhere thereabouts, guys, if that does happen. But again, the major accumulation zone for me is going to be between 75 and 65 if Litecoin ever does get down there. And on the higher time frames, let me pull out to the daily. I mean, we might actually find support at 85, to be honest. To be fair here, we might actually find support. In fact, I am going to mark that out. We might actually find some support there right around 85. That is a fair level. So if we do break 91, we do have that. If 85 breaks down, though, it does suggest a drop down to about 74 to 75-ish, and that zone between 74 and 75 is a very, very strong resistance, or excuse me, support. I would be looking to add to my long-term position if it ever does get down there. To the upside, if we get a daily close above 100, I will be looking for a larger move, potentially a fake out to about 105, but to me, it looks like a larger move to about 110 would very likely be on the table. I'd have to see how price reacts at 110 if and when we do get above that point. And really what your signal is going to be is if we get a move up to that 110 zone and then we get a rejection off 110, you're going to want to see if we can find support. If this ascending support line here, or let's see if it would be, if this ascending line, let's just call it what's acting as resistance now, but if it does break up and hit 110 on the retest, if it rejects there, you want to see if this ascending line does start acting as support. If it does, I do think that's going to be your signal to front run, and I do think we get a springboard up to about 120 if that does happen. Just kind of giving you an idea of what I would be looking at. All right, Robert Parrott says, cheers, helpful catch up after a week away in the hospital. Hey man, I hope you're doing better, man. Best wishes to you, truly. Annalena says, thank you, Workin. Very much appreciated. Would it be possible for you to do analysis on Litecoin against USD? We already did, and yeah, it would be my pleasure. Anything for you, man. I always appreciate you stopping by. Let's see. Zika Fuzi 1220 says, if we look back at other death crosses, they have lasted more than a week, right? Yes. They have. Other death crosses have lasted more than a week traditionally. Dave Jones says, always good. If you're on my hockey team, a buddy, I tell you to stop apologizing so much. You're too nice. Just play hockey as well as you can, and trust other team members to be grown-ups. Yeah, we're not playing hockey though, man. But I get your sentiment. I really do. It's a tough audience when you're talking to when you're trying to appeal to the most amount of people and trying not to offend the most amount of people. Now, I try not to be too politically correct. Although, again, I I try not to. I also try not to offend too many people. So I guess technically, by definition, I would be being politically correct. I'm certainly not in my real life. If we were to hook up in real life, Dave, I'm sure you would probably not think I'm, I'm as nearly as nice of a guy. But you know, on YouTube, man, I just don't see any reason not to be. I get your point, though. You go on to say, personally, I'd like the bottom line in the first 60 seconds, then explain why, and if you have time, going into other crypto overview first, and then details later is helpful. You listen to 1.5 speed, and yeah, I get your point. But as I discussed, and I may try to sum things up a little bit quicker initially, and then go into more detail later. The problem is, without the caveats, my summations may be taken out of context, especially by those newbies. And I know what you're saying up here, just trust other team members to be grown-ups. The problem is, you know, everybody's been there, and especially new people, it's very, very difficult. And I guess I do have a conscience. It's hard to, especially new people that are getting into this, that so badly are so subjected to FOMO and FUD. I want them to understand right away. I don't want them to get, Working's bullish, I'm buying, or Working's bearish, I'm selling. I want them to understand that it's not that simple. It's really not, and there needs to be a lot of check. There's a lot of check, just like that breakup to 11,050 the other day. You know, typically, yes, I said I was bullish short term, but if that's all you heard and you didn't hear the rest of my sentiment saying, watch out for the bear trap, and then of course we had that bear trap, the only thing that you would have been saying was Working said he was bullish, and then we ended up dropping down. What the hell? So I mean, it's a fine line, but I get your point, man. It's tough to appeal to a wide audience. It really is, and I could probably do a better job of doing that. And you know, hey, man, this is a learning process for me. I've never done anything like this. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap things there, guys. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, please let me know in the comment section below. As always, please remember to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell if you do find these videos helpful. And if you would like to support the channel, guys, I'm always grateful that you can find a tip jar. You can find addresses where you can tip the channel in the description below every one of my videos there. And of course, if you'd like a private address, just send me an email, and I appreciate all of my private donors, man. You guys rock. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap things there. Any comments, questions, suggestions, please let me know in the comment section below. As always, would appreciate an upvote if you have enjoyed this content. Till next time, guys, please trade safe, take care of yourselves. This is Working, signing out.